Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan confirmed in a relationship. The world of Chinese entertainment is known for its polished images, meticulously planned public appearances, and tight control over celebrity narratives. Fans adore their idols, clinging to every smile, every glance, every interaction on and off the screen. But once in a while, something breaks through the illusion, something unscripted, something raw. That something, many believe, is what's been silently growing between Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan for years. Their bond began long before it became a subject of mass speculation. Before the red carpets and roaring fan meets, they were just two artists, each quietly navigating a labyrinth of pressure and perfection. Xiao Zhan, with his thoughtful gaze and soft-spoken nature, carried a poetic presence wherever he went. Wang Yibo, wrapped in mystery and fire, moved like a storm, fast, precise, intense. The first time they met was unremarkable to everyone but them. A quiet waiting room, a scattered script, a cold cup of coffee. Xiao Zhan was seated by the window, reviewing lines, while Yibo walked in with his headphones on, barely acknowledging anyone. He sat 2 chairs away. They didn't speak much, maybe a nod, maybe a shared glance. But there was something there, a flicker of something neither of them could name yet. Filming brought them together often. They were professionals, but their connection was undeniable. It was most evident during the quiet moments, the seconds in between camera takes, the hours spent waiting in trailers, the way they always seemed to find each other on set no matter the crowd. Xiao Zhan would often find Yibo perched somewhere alone, rooftops, stairwells, hidden corners, and join him without speaking. There was no need. In one such instance, during a break between filming in the outskirts of Hunan, Yibo invited Xiao Zhan to a lake he had found behind the hills. They rode there on a scooter, just the two of them, the wind chasing their laughter. They sat at the edge of the lake for hours, tossing pebbles into the water. No fans, no media, no expectations, just peace. And in that quiet, a bond grew stronger than either expected. What followed were years of closeness punctuated by rumors, fan theories, and occasional disappearances from the public eye. They rarely addressed the speculations. They didn't need to. Those who truly watched could see it. How Xiao Zhan's smile shifted slightly when Yibo walked into the room, how Yibo's eyes softened when Xiao Zhan laughed. There was no performance there, just truth. During an international concert tour, they found themselves in Tokyo for 3 days. One evening, disguised beneath masks and hoodies, they slipped away from their hotel and wandered through Shinjuku. The city shimmered around them, fluorescent lights, the hiss of traffic, the quiet hum of vending machines. They ducked into a small street food stall and ate grilled skewers while the sky opened up into a soft drizzle. "You ever think about just disappearing?" Xiao Zhan asked quietly, eyes watching the raindrops slide down the plastic curtains. Yibo didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took out the Polaroid camera that never left his backpack, turned it toward Xiao Zhan, and captured him mid-thought. The shutter clicked. "I don't think about disappearing," he said. "I think about moments." That photo, as fans would later discover in a rare magazine spread, became one of Xiao Zhan's most prized possessions, creased, marked, and tucked inside his wallet like a sacred charm. They shared many of these moments, though few ever knew. In Paris, they visited art museums hand in hand, blending into the crowd like tourists. In Los Angeles, they rented an old black convertible and drove to nowhere in particular, letting the wind and the music take them where it pleased. In Seoul, they stayed up all night dancing on a rooftop, silhouetted by the city skyline, laughing until their voices cracked. One of the most intimate stories comes from a cabin buried in the snow-covered hills of the Chinese Alps. New Year's Eve. No cameras, no stylists, no pressure. Just them. They chopped firewood, played chess, cooked noodles, and watched films on an old projector. On the third night, Yibo gave Xiao Zhan a small gift box. Inside was a jade pendant, simple but weighted with silent meaning. "I found this in Chengdu years ago," Yibo murmured. "I didn't know why I kept it, but I think I do now." They didn't kiss that night. They didn't need to. Instead, Xiao Zhan leaned against Yibo as they watched snow fall outside the window, and Yibo rested his chin on the top of his head. No declarations. No grand gestures. Just presence. Just belonging. Despite their care, the world began to notice. Sharp-eyed fans saw the patterns, how they always arrived at events within minutes of each other, how their clothes often matched in subtle ways, how their social media captions sometimes seemed like coded replies to one another. A particularly emotional moment happened during a surprise stage performance in Beijing, where Xiao Zhan sang a solo ballad before Yibo appeared out of the shadows to join him. The crowd erupted, but they didn't acknowledge the roar. They just sang. Together, eyes locked, lost in a universe made for two. Speculation turned into headlines. Agencies grew tense. Colleagues whispered. The pressure mounted. Yet, despite it all, they never denied. Nor did they confirm. Instead, they let their actions speak. They were often seen walking through parks together, sometimes sharing a single umbrella in the rain. At premieres, they no longer avoided standing too close. During interviews, their eyes lingered longer than usual. Not provocatively, just honestly. They never lashed out at the rumors. They never sought validation. They simply lived. Then came the most defining moment. A candid photo captured them at an airport, delayed by weather. The image showed Wang Yibo asleep, head resting gently on Xiao Zhan's shoulder, both of them unaware. No makeup, no filters, just two people at peace with each other. The image went viral, and in that photo, the world saw the truth that had always been there. Eventually, they bought a house on the quiet outskirts of Hangzhou. A modest space surrounded by trees and winding lanes. It wasn't a secret, but it wasn't publicized either. Locals often spotted them biking together in the early mornings, shopping for vegetables at the local market, sometimes just sitting by the riverbank, feeding stray cats. Inside the home, they built a life layered in stillness and song. Yibo often played guitar in the living room, while Xiao Zhan painted by the window. They cooked simple meals, argued over which tea was better, read books aloud, and sometimes, without warning, burst into spontaneous duets. They didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Their world was self-contained, whole. They weren't perfect. They had differences. Yibo was impulsive. Xiao Zhan was methodical. Yibo liked motorcycles. Xiao Zhan preferred long walks. But in their quiet corner of the world, these differences wove together seamlessly. Fans still debate. Some swear by their connection. Others dismiss it as fantasy. But for those who look closely not at the words, but at the silences, they see something that transcends explanation. Months passed, and the rhythm of their life in Hangzhou became like poetry, soft, deliberate, quietly revolutionary. While the world outside roared with gossip and shifting trends, inside their home, time unfolded like silk. The morning sun filtered through linen curtains, casting golden slants across the hardwood floor where two coffee mugs always waited, one black, one white. One for Yibo, one for Zhan. One late afternoon, as spring touched the cherry blossoms just outside their window, a letter arrived. It was an invitation. A major global awards ceremony honoring Asian artists for their impact on international media. Both of them were nominated. Both were requested to attend. It would be their first appearance on an international stage together since the rumors had intensified. Xiao Zhan sat with the envelope for nearly an hour, turning it over in his hands like it held the weight of their entire story. "Do we go?" he finally asked, eyes searching Yibo's. Wang Yibo leaned against the doorframe, arms folded, face unreadable, until he cracked the tiniest, knowing grin. "Let's stop hiding in plain sight." And just like that, everything changed. The night of the awards, they arrived separately, as expected. But once inside, they walked the red carpet together. Cameras flashed. Questions erupted like firecrackers. Who were they wearing? Were they collaborating again? Why did they look different? Neither answered. Not with words. Because the real answer came later that night. After the awards, during the closing banquet, the venue lights dimmed and a piano began to play softly on the stage. No one had been announced to perform. Then, Unexpectedly, Xiao Zhan walked to the mic, calm and composed in a black velvet suit.
He spoke.
This next song, he said, voice steady, isn't for the charts. It isn't for the fans. It isn't even for this room. It's for one person. He knows who he is. The music swelled. A soft, haunting melody filled the air, something unfamiliar but unforgettable. As he sang, his eyes searched the crowd. And then Yibo stepped into the spotlight behind him. No introduction. No warning. Just presence.
He didn't take the mic.
He walked up behind Xiao Zhan, close enough that their silhouettes merged in the stage light. And when the last note fell, Yibo reached out, touched Xiao Zhan's shoulder, and stayed there. Solid. Steady. No one moved. In that moment, a truth unspoken became undeniable. The entire world seemed to pause. Not in scandal, not in gossip, but in reverence. After the show, they didn't return to the after-party. They left quietly, slipping into the rainy night and disappearing into the blur of a waiting car.